This is a story about love, tragedy, and the oldest bar in Hawaii.
It stars a World War II veteran, Lauren Bruner, and it takes place in Chinatown, Honolulu, this neighborhood. My name is Carter Churchfield, and I'm your tour guide for this video.
Lauren Bruner grew up in McCleary, Washington, a lumber town, during the Great Depression. His family struggled to put food on the table, so he started working at 8 years old for bootleggers. At the age of 18, the 15th of November, he joined the U.S. Navy and after 4 months of training was assigned to the USS Arizona. He was assigned to fire control, which meant he was on a highly trained crew that helped manage the armament of the ship by determining firing solutions to be used against an enemy. The Navy took him to the far-off islands of Hawaii, a paradise.
The Navy boys would visit Honolulu's infamous red light district to blow off steam, and it was located right here in Chinatown. There were sailors on every sidewalk. The different crews of Navy ships would find different bars to make their homes. This is Smith's Union Bar. It is the oldest bar in Hawaii. It was opened in 1934 for unionized dock workers, but the crew of the USS Arizona made it their home. So this is where Lauren Bruner drank when he was a kid in World War II. Now he says the bar is pretty much the same today, but with a couple very important differences. First of all, back in the day, it used to smell like stale beer and urine. It smells much better today. Now imagine the sailors lined up down the sidewalk, and when they get to the front of the line to take shots, they're drinking bottom shelf stuff. Bourbon, whiskey, Five Islands gin. The people who reminisce about Five Islands gin all agree that if a sailor drank too much of this rock gut, his chest hair would start falling out. So this is where young Lauren Bruner drank. The walls are curved to mimic a submarine, and the men's room door has been a shower curtain for the last 80 years. Let's go check out the men's room. So here we are at the men's room. Let's see this historical setup. Ta-da! Shower curtain. Ah, privacy with another shower curtain. Oh, that's important. Yeah, you don't want someone to accidentally pull it back. Anyway, there's a trough here, and there's ice in the trough today. Really classy. Back in the day, you'd have multiple men crammed in here at the same time, and sometimes a guy'd be really drunk, he'd be trying to use the trough. A guy on the toilet would ask him a question, and he'd be like, "What?" And he'd accidentally pee on the guy on the toilet. So Bruner saw two fights break out this way, with men punching each other with their pants around their ankles.
What was the dating situation like? Dismal for men. But if you were a woman, and you didn't have a date any night of the week, it's because you didn't want one. The gender ratio was not good if you were a man. Lauren Bruner must have been really sexy back in the day because he captured the eye of a young bartender. "Call me Nikki," she said. She told him, "You won't be able to remember my real name. It's Japanese." Well, he promised he would remember her name, so she told him, "It's Michiko." He kept visiting her at the bar, and she was happy to see him, so he summoned up the courage to ask her out, and she said yes. He took her to Polly Lookout, and they held hands as the stars came out. He fell in love, imagining what their future children would look like and how they would raise them in Hawaii. Well, they had a date for the next morning in Waikiki, set for 10 a.m., the Japanese attack at 8 a.m. As he's standing on the deck of the Arizona, and the Japanese planes are firing down at him, splintering the deck, a splinter goes through his calf. His first emotion is fury that he is going to miss his date. 20 minutes later, things are very different. He's covered in burns over most of his body, and now he's thinking, will I ever make it back to Smith's Union to drink with my friends again?
So when you come in Smith's Union Bar, you're going to see these wonderful photographs donated by survivors of the Pearl Harbor attacks, as well as survivors of the Arizona. And here you've got Lauren Bruner himself. He has circled his battle station in this photograph, right there. Now, when he and his gun crew got in that room, Loren Bruner got a Japanese plane in the scope. He went to fire, but there was no ammunition. Somebody had to leave to go get ammunition. 8 minutes later, the bomb brought just for the Arizona hit its target. Now, it did not go off right away. It was so heavy it started sinking deck after deck, and when it did finally explode, Loren Bruner and his gun crew were at the tip of the candle. Everybody in that room got burns over most of their bodies. The way they survived is that somebody on another ship saw them and threw them a rope. They tied the rope to the railing of the Arizona, and then they went hand over hand on the rope. Behind them, the ship is on fire and the rope is catching fire. Above them, Japanese planes are firing at them, and beneath them in the water, sharks are frenzying. He was the second to the last man to escape with his life that day. And he wrote a book about it, and it's called Second to the Last to Leave the USS Arizona. Now, it took him 7 decades to open up about his experiences that day. Here he is at the 75th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attacks. He came back to the bar, as he does every year, and he's celebrating his book release. And in these photographs, you see the bar's current owner, and Ed McGrath, the man who put together the book and got Loren to start speaking about his experiences. So you're probably wondering, whatever happened to Michiko? While Loren was in the hospital, covered in burns over most of his body, he's on a morphine drip. He asks a nurse to go to the bar and find her. She does, but there's a big sign. It says closed due to Japanese ownership. So the good news is we did find out what happened to her earlier this year. She lived to be 86 years old. She got married, she had children, she has grandchildren on the islands today, but she died without ever knowing that he survived the Pearl Harbor attacks. Now, I highly recommend his book, Second to the Last to Leave the USS Arizona. It is haunting. And he talks about his childhood, which was hard, of course. He grew up in the Great Depression. But his enthusiasm as a young man coming to Hawaii and seeing the islands, I mean, you cannot help but fall in love with him. And you can buy a copy here in the bar.
My name is Dwight Lockwood, the current owner of Smith's Union Bar.
How did you end up owning the bar?
I was in the Army Infantry. I got stationed here in 2010 down at Schofield Barracks, and I used to come up here on the weekends to make a few bad decisions, have a few drinks, and after being a customer for 2 years, the bar came available for purchase, and it was either time for me to re-enlist or get out. And I thought, since the bar had been here 79 years, chances of me screwing it up would be good odds, worth taking the chance.
Now, were you into military history before this?
Oh yes, I was. Since being in the military, it's something that struck me. I started out in the Navy, and then I finished up in the Army. So I went through 2 different branches. So it's something that was always near and dear to my heart.
As for Smith's Union Bar, it's still here, serving tourists, locals, and sailors alike, playing board games, watching sports, and singing karaoke. So, thank you for watching my little video. I hope to make more in the future. Until then, aloha. Oh yeah.
Never too early.